She hid in the Mafia boss's car to escape her abusive ex. He whispered, "I'll protect you." What he did next will shock you. Honestly, I didn't know the man sitting in the dark corner of that luxury sedan was the most dangerous criminal in Chicago. I only knew that the man hunting me down the street was going to trade my body to pay off his gambling debts. If the idea of escaping a monster only to land in the lap of a dragon makes your heart race, hit that like button. Subscribe right now and tell us your city and the time you are watching, because the choice I make in the next 10 seconds changes my life forever. The bruise on Jade Rivers' upper arm was yellowing, looking like a fading map of where Brian's fingers had dug in 3 days ago because she bought the wrong brand of beer. That was her life, a calculated navigation of eggshells, ensuring her breathing wasn't too loud, making sure her body took up as little space as possible in their suffocating apartment. She stayed because she believed him when he said no one else would want someone like her. Someone whose weight was his favorite weapon to use against her self-worth. Someone who was too stupid, too ugly, too worthless to survive without him. She stayed until this morning when she found the burner phone taped beneath the bathroom sink. The texts made her blood turn to ice. The girl. Full payment. Tomorrow night. Bring her to the warehouse on 5th. $200,000 debt cleared. She better be worth it. Don't worry. Fresh meat always sells. Especially the thick ones. Some guys pay extra for that. Brian wasn't just going to hurt her this time. He was going to sell her. Trade her body like currency to pay off gambling debts she didn't even know existed. That was the catalyst. The sheer cold terror overrode 5 years of conditioning. Jade ran with nothing but the clothes on her back, escaping their basement apartment at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She made it 3 blocks before she heard his truck roaring down the street, hunting her. Panic strips you of logic. When you're being chased by a man who's beaten you for half a decade, you don't think strategically. You just run. Jade dove into the underground parking garage of the Obsidian Tower, Chicago's most exclusive luxury hotel, a place way out of her league, praying the shadows would swallow her whole. Her lungs burned. Her heavy frame shuddered with every gasp. Brian's engine echoed off the concrete walls, getting closer. She was trapped. That's when she saw it. A polished black Escalade, its rear door slightly ajar, interior lights off, sitting in the VIP section like a predator at rest. Jade didn't think, just shoved herself inside, tumbling onto plush leather, curling into the smallest ball her size allowed, jamming herself between the front and back seats. She smelled expensive leather, faint cigarette smoke, and something sharp like gun oil. She lay there, heart hammering against her ribs, listening to the garage sounds, footsteps, distant voices, the terrible roar of Brian's truck circling like a shark. Then voices. Sharp. Authoritative. American accents that held power she'd never heard before. The rear door right next to her head swung open. The man who slid into the seat above her didn't notice her immediately. He was on the phone, his voice a low, controlled monotone discussing shipments and territory adjustments in language that sounded like business but felt like violence. Jade dared to peek. Expensive suit. Italian leather shoes. And on the hand resting casually on his knee, a hand that looked like it could crush stone, a sprawling tattoo of a black wolf midleap peeked out from beneath his cuff. Roman Blackwell radiated a terrifying stillness. Not the explosive rage Brian carried, but something colder. More lethal. The kind of calm that came before executions. He ended the call and shifted in his seat. That's when he saw her. Jade stopped breathing. She expected shouting. Expected to be dragged out by her hair and tossed onto the concrete. Expected violence because violence was all she knew from men. Instead, there was silence. Roman looked down at her, his eyes dark gray, hooded, utterly unreadable. There was no shock on his face. Only clinical assessment. He took in her tear-streaked face, the cheap torn jacket, the visible bruises on her wrist, and the sheer terror vibrating off her like a tuning fork. He didn't look at her with disgust the way Brian did. He looked at her like she was a misplaced object that had suddenly become interesting. Before he could speak, a shadow fell over the car window. Jade's blood turned to ice. Brian. He was outside, his face pressed against the tinted glass, his eyes wild. He couldn't see in clearly through the privacy tint, but he knew she was nearby. He started banging on the glass, shouting obscenities that were muffled by the Escalade soundproofing, but Jade knew every word by heart. Jade, get your fat ass out here. I know you're hiding somewhere. You think you can run from me? Jade whimpered, a pathetic sound that escaped before she could stop it. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the inevitable. Waiting for this stranger to throw her to the wolf to save his upholstery. Roman Blackwell didn't move. Didn't flinch at the banging. He just watched her with those unreadable gray eyes. He saw the way she flinched with every thump against the glass. The way she tried to make herself disappear into the floor mats. The way her entire body trembled with the muscle memory of violence. The banging continued. Brian was screaming now, threatening hotel security, threatening to call the cops, threatening to burn down the whole goddamn building. Roman leaned down. The scent of expensive cologne and controlled danger washed over Jade. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried more weight than any shout Brian had ever produced. It was a voice used to giving orders that determined life or death. Stay down, he commanded. Not unkindly, just absolute. Then he did something that altered the axis of Jade's world. He reached down, his large scarred hand hovering for a second before gently, almost hesitantly, resting on her trembling shoulder. It wasn't a grope. It wasn't possession. It was weight. A grounding force. An anchor in the storm. He will not touch you again, Roman whispered, the promise vibrating through his hand into her bones. I'll protect you. He tapped the partition glass. The driver, silent, invisible until that moment, started the engine. The Escalade glided forward, smooth and silent as a predator leaving its kill behind. Jade stayed curled on the floor, feeling the hum of the engine beneath her, weeping silently as they drove past a furious, impotent Brian who was still screaming at empty air. She was being taken from one cage, she knew, but she had no idea the kind of gilded fortress she was entering. Jade looked up at the man who had just saved her. He wasn't looking at her anymore. He was staring straight ahead, his jaw set, looking like a king who had just acquired new territory he wasn't quite sure what to do with yet. They drove for 40 minutes in absolute silence. Jade was too terrified to move from the floorboards, her body aching from the tension. Eventually, the car slowed and descended, down, down, down into what felt like the Earth's core. The darkness outside the tinted windows was replaced by harsh artificial brightness. Underground parking. Private. Secure. When the car finally stopped, the door opened and Roman's hand was there again. Not demanding this time. Offering assistance. Jade crawled out on shaking knees, her legs weak. She felt deep, burning shame about her size, her disheveled state, the fact that she was a mess of a human being who'd just invaded this man's car like a stray animal. She stood up slowly and finally looked at her savior fully. Roman Blackwell was devastatingly handsome, sharp jawline, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, those gray eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 violent secrets. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, but his energy was ancient, battle-worn, dangerous. They were in a private underground garage beneath a building that seemed to pierce the sky itself. Sterile, bright, secure. Two men in dark suits waited by an elevator, both built like walls. They bowed their heads slightly when Roman emerged, a gesture of respect that spoke volumes. They barely glanced at Jade, as if her presence was already expected, already managed, already cataloged. Take her to the East Wing guest suite, Roman ordered, his voice carrying absolute authority. Then he switched his attention to Jade, looked her right in the eye. You're safe here. No one enters this building without my permission, and no one leaves with my property. Property. The word chilled Jade to the bone. Yet strangely, it didn't terrify her the way it would have coming from Brian. With Brian, being property meant being a punching bag, something to be used and discarded and destroyed. With Roman, it sounded different. It sounded like being placed in a vault. It sounded like value, like protection, like ownership that came with consequences for anyone who dared touch what was his. One of the suited men, silent, efficient, gestured for Jade to follow. She cast one last look at Roman, who was already on his phone, barking orders in that cold, controlled voice. He didn't look back at her. She was led away through long corridors of glass and steel. The building was a sprawling fortress disguised as luxury. She was shown to a room that was bigger than her entire old apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a bed that looked like clouds, a closet filled with clothes that still had tags on them. The guard pointed wordlessly at the bathroom. at the food laid out on a table, then left, locking the door from the outside with a soft click. Jade walked to the massive window and looked out at Chicago sprawling below, the city lights glittering like diamonds someone owned. She felt like an exotic bird caught in a net, waiting for the collector to decide what to do with her. She wasn't free. Not really. She had just traded a cage of rust and blood for a cage of gold and silk. But at least in this cage, she could breathe. At least in this cage, Brian couldn't reach her. At least in this cage, someone had whispered, "I'll protect you." Jade pressed her forehead against the cold glass and wondered if she'd just been saved or captured. The first week passed in a blur of luxury and suffocating isolation. Jade didn't see Roman. Not once. She was attended by silent staff who brought gourmet meals 3 times a day, food so beautiful it looked like art, food she was too afraid to eat because Brian's voice still echoed in her head. "You're fat enough already. Do you really need seconds?" She wore the expensive clothes from the closet, silk that felt like water against skin used to rough cotton. She slept in a bed so soft it felt like floating. She stood at the window for hours, watching Chicago move below her like she was watching life from behind glass. Guards stood outside her door. Not threatening. Just there. Present. Ensuring she stayed exactly where she was. On day 3, she turned on the massive television in her suite, desperate for connection to the outside world. The news hit her like a physical blow. 7 bodies discovered in the Chicago River early this morning. Police identify them as members of a known loan shark operation connected to the Serpent Collective. Among the deceased, Brian Mitchell, 32, found with multiple gunshot wounds. Jade's hands shook so violently she dropped the remote. Brian was dead. Not missing. Not arrested. Dead. The screen showed his photo. The face that had haunted her nightmares for 5 years, now frozen in a mugshot, now gone forever. A cold knot formed in her stomach because she knew. Deep in her bones, she knew. Roman hadn't just rescued her. He had erased the threat. Permanently. That evening, everything changed. A knock on her door. Not a guard. A woman. She was stunning. Sharp cheekbones, expensive suit, cold eyes that assessed Jade like she was looking at a bug under glass. "Mr. Blackwell requests your presence." His study. Now. Jade followed her through corridors that grew darker, more intimate. The woman, who didn't offer her name, walked with the confident stride of someone who owned space, who took it without asking. They stopped at massive double doors. The woman knocked once, then left without a word. "Come in." Roman's voice from inside. Jade pushed the door open. Roman's study was a cathedral of power, dark wood, leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and windows overlooking Chicago like he owned every light in the city. He stood behind a massive desk, still wearing his suit from whatever business had occupied his day. He looked tired, but when he saw her, something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but softer. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair across from him. Jade sat, hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling. Roman walked around the desk, closing the distance between them. Up close, she could see the faint scars on his knuckles, the shadow of exhaustion under his eyes, the coiled tension in his shoulders. "You've seen the news," he stated. Not a question. "Did you kill him?" Jade's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Roman didn't answer directly. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, studying her. The debt Brian owed wasn't financial. Not really. He was selling something that wasn't his to sell. "He offended me. You didn't even know me." "I knew enough." Roman's jaw tightened. "I saw the bruises. I saw the way you flinched. I saw a woman being hunted by a man who thought he owned her. That was enough." He moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. "Do you know what men like Brian do to women they consider property, Jade? They break them. Slowly. Methodically. Until there's nothing left but obedience and fear. I don't allow that in my city." "Your city." "My city," he confirmed without arrogance. "Just fact." Jade looked at her hands. "So what am I to you? Another piece of property you don't allow to be broken?" Roman's hand reached out, slow, giving her time to pull away, and touched the yellowing bruise on her jaw. His thumb traced it with agonizing gentleness. "You were brave in that car. Terror makes most people stupid. You stayed quiet. You survived. I was terrified. And you acted anyway. That's not weakness. That's strength." His gray eyes held hers. "Why did you run into my car, Jade? You could have hidden anywhere." The door was open. "I didn't think." You trusted your instincts. And your instincts brought you to me. Roman's voice dropped lower. Do you believe in fate? I don't know what I believe anymore. Then believe this. He stepped even closer, his heat radiating toward her. You're under my protection now. That means no one touches you. No one threatens you. No one makes you feel small ever again. Do you understand? Why? Jade whispered. You don't know me. I'm nobody. I'm just. Don't. The command in his voice stopped her cold. Don't finish that sentence. Don't repeat the poison that man put in your head. Roman crouched down so they were eye level. You think your value lies in how little space you occupy? That man broke you to make himself feel tall. I don't need to break things to know my power. He reached out and took her hand, her scarred, trembling hand, and held it like it was something precious. I kept you because when I looked in your eyes in that garage, I saw a will to live that matched my own. And because... He paused, jaw clenching like he was fighting some internal battle. Because I decided I wanted you. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't soft. It was a declaration. A claim. A line drawn in sand that said, this is mine now. What does that mean? Jade's voice shook. It means you're safe. It means you're fed. It means you're protected. Roman stood, pulling her to her feet with him. And it means anyone who tries to hurt you answers to me. The next morning, Roman took her shopping. Not because she asked. He simply announced at breakfast, which he insisted she eat with him, personally serving her food when she tried to skip it, that her wardrobe was insufficient. They took the Escalade to Chicago's most exclusive fashion district. Buildings of glass and chrome that screamed wealth and exclusivity. When they pulled up to a boutique called Etoile, Roman didn't get out immediately. He was on a call, speaking in low tones about shipments and territory disputes. Go inside, he told Jade, handing her a black card that felt heavier than steel. Get whatever you want. My men will be right outside. Jade walked in feeling like an imposter. The boutique smelled like money and judgment. Two sales associates, rail-thin, impossibly beautiful, looked up. Their smiles dropped instantly. Jade wasn't their usual clientele. She was plus-size in a store where the mannequins were size 0. She was wearing borrowed clothes. She was everything this place wasn't designed for. She browsed a rack of coats, trying to find something, anything in her size. One of the associates approached. Too close. Arms crossed. We don't carry extended sizes here. You'd have better luck at the outlet mall on State Street. The words landed like slaps. Jade's face burned. It was the same humiliation she'd felt 1,000 times. The same shame Brian had weaponized. She started to back away, mumbling an apology, ready to flee. Then the bell above the door chimed. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Roman Blackwell walked in. He must have seen through the window. Must have seen Jade's face. He didn't look at the clothes. He looked at the sales associate. Is there a problem? His voice was quiet. Deadly. The girl stammered, face flushing. No, sir. We were just what? We were advising her on our sizing options. Roman turned to the store manager who had rushed over, sensing danger. Pull your sales records for the last hour. I'm buying every item in this store's current inventory. Everything. The manager gasped. Sir, that's everything, Roman repeated. Except her employment. He pointed at the rude associate. Fire her. Now. Or I make one phone call, and this location closes permanently by end of business today. The girl was sobbing within seconds. Security escorted her out. Roman turned to Jade, who stood frozen in shock. He crossed to her, lifted her chin with one finger, forcing her to meet his eyes. Do not lower your head, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're with me, and anyone who disrespects you is disrespecting me. That's a mistake people only make once. He didn't just buy her clothes. He bought back her dignity. Later, in the car, surrounded by shopping bags, Jade finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Roman's eyes were hard. No one disrespects what's mine. What's mine? There it was again. That phrase that should have terrified her, but somehow made her feel safer than she'd ever felt. Roman, what am I to you? Really? He looked at her for a long moment. You're the first thing I've wanted to protect instead of destroy in 15 years. That's what you are. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Jade realized with startling clarity that she was falling for the most dangerous man in Chicago, and he was falling just as hard for her. 2 weeks passed. Roman's penthouse became less of a prison and more of a sanctuary. He didn't just feed Jade, He cooked for her. Stood in his massive kitchen at midnight making pasta from scratch because she mentioned she missed her grandmother's recipe. His hands, capable of such violence, were gentle kneading dough. He didn't just protect her, he taught her. Showed her how to shoot a gun in his private range. "You'll never be helpless again," he said, standing behind her, guiding her grip. "Not while I'm alive." They talked, late into the night, about everything. Her childhood before Brian destroyed it. His father who'd beaten him until he learned to become harder than fists. The scars they both carried that no one else could see. Jade felt herself falling deeper. Dangerously deep. One night, Roman found her crying in the library. She'd been organizing his books, needing to feel useful, to earn her space, when she'd stumbled upon a folder that had slipped from a stack. The label read, Brian Mitchell. Her hands shook as she opened it. It wasn't a police report. It was a debt ledger. Spreadsheets. Bank transfers. Legal documents. Brian had owed $200,000 to the Serpent Collective. The loan was collateralized against personal assets, which meant her. The paperwork explicitly listed Jade Rivers as property to be seized upon default. The last page made her stomach drop. Debt transfer agreement. Paid in full, $200,000. Collateral rights transferred to Roman Blackwell. Dated 7 days before she'd hidden in his car. 7 days before. Roman had known about her before that night. Had purchased Brian's debt. Had legally acquired ownership of her. The coincidence of her running to his car suddenly felt less like fate and more like a trap that had been set and sprung perfectly. "No," Jade whispered to the empty room. "No, no, no." She heard footsteps. Looked up, but it wasn't Roman. Vanessa Cross stood in the doorway, Roman's second in command, the woman who ran his operations with cold efficiency. She'd been civil to Jade, but distant, like someone observing an experiment. Now she smiled, and it was cruel. "So you found the receipt," Vanessa said, walking in with the confident stride of someone who owned every room they entered. "I wondered how long it would take." "He bought me," Jade's voice cracked. "Before I even ran. He bought me like property." "Of course he did." Vanessa circled the desk, her heels clicking like a countdown. "You think Roman Blackwell makes emotional decisions? You think he just happened to be in that parking garage at the exact right moment? Please. Then why? The Serpent Collective has been trying to push into our territory for 6 months. They've been using low-level dealers like your ex to launder money. By buying Brian's debt, Roman didn't just get you. He got legal documentation of their entire operation. Bank accounts. Names. Addresses." Vanessa leaned against the desk. "You were never the prize, Jade. You were the key." The room spun. "I don't understand. The Serpents are too smart to come after Roman directly. But you..." Vanessa's smile widened. "You're the perfect bait. They'll come for what Roman took from them. And when they do, he'll be waiting to eliminate them all in one move. It's brilliant, really. He protects his new toy and destroys his enemies simultaneously. I'm not a toy. That's exactly what you are. Don't mistake tactical moves for affection." Vanessa moved closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "The shopping? The cooking? The late-night talks? Roman Blackwell is very good at making assets feel valued. It keeps them compliant. But once this war is over, once the Serpents are eliminated, you'll be discarded. You're not special. You're just useful. For now." Jade's vision blurred with tears. "You're lying." "Am I? Then ask yourself this. Why hasn't he touched you? You've been here 2 weeks. You sleep 20 feet from his bedroom. If he really wanted you, if this was real, don't you think he would have made a move?" Vanessa's voice turned poisonous. "He doesn't see you that way. He sees you as a responsibility. A burden he's stuck with until you've served your purpose." She turned to leave, paused at the door. "Enjoy the penthouse while it lasts. Once the Serpents make their move, your usefulness expires. And Roman doesn't keep things that no longer serve him." Vanessa disappeared down the hallway, leaving Jade shattered in the library, the debt ledger mocking her from the desk. Everything made sense now. The protection, the kindness, the shopping trip where he defended her honor. It wasn't love. It was asset management. She'd traded one cage for another. At least with Brian, she'd known she was property. With Roman, she'd been stupid enough to believe she was something more. Minutes later, or maybe hours, time had lost meaning. Footsteps approached. Heavy. Male. Familiar. Roman appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from whatever business had occupied his day. His eyes immediately found the open file on the desk, then moved to Jade's tear-stained face. His expression shifted, shock, then something that looked almost like pain. "Jade, you bought me." Her voice was hollow. "7 days before I ran to your car. You already own me." Roman took a step forward. She backed away. "Let me explain." "Explain what? That I'm bait? That everything, the protection, the kindness, the way you made me feel safe, was just you managing your investment?" "No, that's not." Roman's jaw clenched. "Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true? Yes and no. Yes or no, Roman." Jade's scream echoed through the penthouse. Roman's hands clenched into fists at his sides. When he spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. "Yes, I bought Brian's debt before you ran. Yes, it gave me legal claim to the Serpent Collective's operation. Yes, I knew they'd eventually come for you. But there's no but. I'm just a pawn in your war." "You're not a pawn." "Then what am I?" Jade's voice broke. "What am I to you, Roman? Really?" Before he could answer, the lights went out. All of them. The entire penthouse plunged into darkness. Emergency generators should have kicked in immediately. They didn't. Roman's hand moved to the gun at his hip in one smooth motion. "Get behind me. Now." "What's happening?" "They're here." His voice was ice. "The serpents. They're here for you." Glass shattered. Multiple windows. Simultaneous. Professional. Roman grabbed Jade's arm, pulled her toward the panic room. But the door wouldn't open. The electronic lock was dead. They cut the power. They disabled the security. Roman's mind raced. "Vanessa. She's the only one who knew the system well enough. She told me you were using me as bait. She was setting you up, making sure you'd doubt me when they attacked." Roman pulled Jade close, his body shielding hers. "She's been feeding them information. This whole thing was her play." Footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving through the penthouse with military precision. Roman pushed Jade toward the service elevator. "There's a manual override. Get to the garage. Take the Escalade. Keys are in the ignition. Drive until..." "I'm not leaving you." "Jade, listen to me." Roman cupped her face, his gray eyes burning with intensity. "Everything Vanessa told you was a lie. I didn't plan this. I didn't use you. I bought that debt because if I didn't, they would have taken you and I couldn't." His voice cracked. "I couldn't let that happen. Not to you." "Why?" "Because I'm in love with you, you stubborn woman. Because from the moment I saw you in that car, terrified but fighting, I knew you were mine. Not property. Mine. Do you understand the difference?" Jade's breath caught. The footsteps were closer. Voices in the darkness. At least 6 men. Roman kissed her. Hard. Desperate. A goodbye kiss. "Now run. And don't look back." He shoved her toward the service elevator, then turned to face the darkness, gun raised. Jade ran, her heart screaming at her to stay, her survival instinct overriding everything. She reached the elevator, hit the manual override. The doors opened. Behind her, gunfire erupted. Jade screamed Roman's name, but the elevator doors closed, taking her down, away from the man she loved, away from the battle, away from the truth she'd only just learned. Roman loved her, and she'd just left him to die? The elevator descended into darkness while above, the war Roman had been preparing for finally came. And Jade realized with horrifying clarity that Vanessa hadn't just betrayed Roman. She'd separated them, isolated them, made sure they'd face this attack divided. Because together, they were dangerous. Apart, they were vulnerable. The elevator hit the garage level. The doors opened. Jade stepped out and froze. Vanessa stood there, gun pointed at Jade's chest. Behind her, 3 Serpent Collective soldiers. "Did you really think I'd let you escape?" Vanessa's smile was venom. "You're the whole reason for this. The bait that draws out the dragon." She pulled the trigger. The shot exploded through the garage. Jade's eyes squeezed shut, waiting for the impact, the pain, the end. It didn't come. When she opened her eyes, Vanessa was stumbling backward, a red bloom spreading across her shoulder. Her gun clattered to the concrete. Behind Jade, emerging from the stairwell, not the elevator, Roman stood. Blood-soaked, limping, gun smoking. "You should have known," Roman said, his voice deadly calm despite the bullet wound in his leg, the gash across his ribs, "that I'd take the stairs." He'd followed her. Through the gunfire. Through the ambush. Bleeding and broken, but still moving. For her. The 3 Serpent soldiers raised their weapons. Roman was faster. 3 shots. 3 bodies hitting the ground before they could fire. Vanessa scrambled for her gun. Roman's boot came down on her wrist. Bones cracked audibly. She screamed. "You betrayed me." Roman's voice was colder than Jade had ever heard it. "You put her in danger. There's no mercy for that. She's just a girl." Vanessa spat through her pain. "You were getting soft, making emotional decisions. I was trying to save this organization. By selling me out to the serpents? By setting up the woman I love." "Love?" Vanessa laughed, hysterical. "You don't love her. You can't. You're Roman Blackwell. You don't feel anything." "I didn't," Roman said quietly. "Until her. One shot." Vanessa's eyes went wide. Then empty. Roman swayed on his feet. Jade caught him before he collapsed. "You came back," she whispered. "Always." His hand touched her face, leaving a smear of blood. "I'll always come back for you. You're bleeding. I know. But you're safe. That's all that matters." Sirens wailed in the distance. Roman's remaining men, the loyal ones, emerged from the stairwell. They'd eliminated the rest of the serpent team upstairs. "Get him to Dr. Reeves," the head guard commanded. Now. 3 days later, Jade sat beside Roman's hospital bed in his private medical facility. He'd been unconscious for 60 hours. Bullet removed from his leg. 17 stitches in his side. Blood transfusion. Touch and go twice. But he was breathing. Fighting. Surviving. Because that's what Roman Blackwell did. His eyes opened. Unfocused at first. Then they found her. "You stayed." His voice was rough from the breathing tube they'd removed that morning. "Where else would I go? You could have run. When the shooting started. When you saw what I really am. I know what you are. You're the man who took a bullet protecting me. Who killed for me. Who," her voice broke. "Who loves me." Roman's hand found hers. Squeezed weakly. "I meant what I said. In the garage. Every word. I know. I'm sorry I doubted you." "Don't. Vanessa played you perfectly. Made sure you doubt me at exactly the right moment." He coughed, winced. "I should have told you about buying the debt. Should have explained. But I was afraid you'd run if you knew." "Why did you buy it? Tell me the truth." Roman's gray eyes held hers. "Because the Serpent Collective had legal claim to you. As long as that debt existed, they could come for you anytime. The only way to protect you was to own the debt myself. To make you legally mine so no one else could touch you. You could have told me. Would you have believed me? Or would you have run thinking I was just another man trying to control you?" He pulled her closer despite the pain. "I didn't want to control you, Jade. I wanted to keep you alive long enough for you to see that you were worth more than any man ever told you." Tears streamed down Jade's face. "I love you. I know. You wouldn't have come back up those stairs for someone you didn't love." "What?" Roman smiled, weak but genuine. "My men have cameras everywhere. I saw you in the elevator. Saw you hit the emergency stop button on the 3rd floor. Saw you take the stairs back up." His thumb brushed her tears away. "You were coming back to fight beside me. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were mine. Completely. The same way I'm yours." 6 months later. The wedding was private. Just Roman's inner circle. The men who'd proven their loyalty by bleeding for him. And Jade's small family. A cousin she'd reconnected with. An aunt who cried through the whole ceremony. Jade wore white. Not traditional white. A cream silk that draped her curves like water, custom-made by the designer who'd fired that boutique employee. Roman had bought the entire fashion house out of spite and hired better staff. Roman wore black. Always black. But when he looked at Jade walking toward him, his eyes held something no one had ever seen before. Softness. Hope. Love. "You sure about this?" Jade whispered when she reached him. Last chance to run from the fat girl. Roman's jaw clenched. Don't ever talk about yourself that way again. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And you're mine." "Yours," she agreed. "And you're mine. Always." The officiant cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" They exchanged vows. Roman promised to protect her, to cherish her, to spend every day proving she was worth more than any man had ever told her. Jade promised to stand beside him, to be his partner, to love him despite the darkness that came with his world. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. For the first time in his life, Roman Blackwell smiled in public. 1 year later, Jade stood in the nursery she'd designed, rocking their 3-month-old son, Ashton, while humming softly. Roman appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from meetings. But when he saw his wife and son, the hardness melted. "How's he doing?" "Perfect. Just like his father." Jade smiled. "Stubborn. Strong. Beautiful. Roman crossed the room, wrapped his arms around them both. I never thought I'd have this. Family. Peace. Love. You earned it. By choosing to protect instead of destroy. By loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. Best decision I ever made. They stood there, the three of them. The crime lord, the woman he'd saved, and their son. Proof that broken people could build something beautiful. Jade's foundation for domestic violence survivors was thriving. She helped women escape, gave them resources, taught them their worth. Roman still ran his empire, but cleaner, smarter, using his power to eliminate threats to the vulnerable instead of just accumulating wealth. Do you ever regret it? Jade asked. Saving me that night? Roman kissed her forehead. Every choice I made before you was preparation. Every mistake. Every scar. It all led me to that parking garage. To you hiding in my car. To the moment I decided you were worth protecting. Even though I came with so much baggage. Your baggage made you who you are. And who you are is extraordinary. He looked down at their sleeping son. This kid is going to grow up knowing his mother is the strongest person I ever met. That she survived hell and came out fighting. And his father is the most dangerous man who chose love over power. Love is power, Roman corrected. The only kind worth having. Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness. The same city where Jade had once run for her life. The same city where Roman had built an empire on fear. Now it was the city where they'd built a family on love. And that was the greatest victory of all. Real love isn't about ownership. It's about protection given freely. Jade and Roman proved that broken people can heal together, that past trauma doesn't define your future, and sometimes the most dangerous person becomes your safest place when they choose you above everything. If this story of survival, dangerous love, and redemption set your heart on fire, don't just watch. Take action. Smash that subscribe button right now and join our community of story lovers. Hit the like button if you're rooting for Jade and Roman's love. Drop a comment. Would you hide in a stranger's car to escape danger? Turn on all notifications so you never miss our next heart-pounding story. Subscribe now. Your next obsession awaits.